Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Friday, June 14, 2019. I am MD. We started earlier this morning talking about public servants, about the state of the country, and you may have received a notice right before this program that says making sense of chaos. First, a couple of items that's in the news we will talk about. Now, just to give you to make certain we're on the same wavelength. If you join us for the first time, welcome. The fourth branch program is a venue in which we try to inform you, not like the way you've been informed. You can tune into any network to get the news, to listen to comment. But the fourth branch gears to do something much more important, much more permanent than just informing you, but rather to make certain that working towards achieving a more perfect union. And to do that, we ought to remove ignorance. And more often than not, because everybody is screaming at everybody, then the idea of anyone being informed is almost impossible. Yes, from time to time we tell you a few things that's happening as well, but we spend most of the time here trying to decipher, prevent this union from becoming perfect. In the news today, you may have heard that there was a Japanese tanker that was hit in the Strait of Hormuz, which is in near Iran, and automatically Donald Trump went on record based on some video that was provided by I guess surveillance in that area, accusing Iran of responsible for that problem. And Donald Trump said categorically that was Iran, and according to the video submitted, it shows that there were activities of that the military treated as Iran armed personnel trying to remove unexploded mines. Now, before I say what I'm about to say next, one thing that I mentioned here before, I'll mention it again. The best way to know that something is false is to hear what Donald Trump says. That's as simple as that. I don't spend my time trying to analyze, trying to decipher, trying to figure out. If you hear from Donald Trump, you can take it to the bank, it's false. Now, you may not recall, or you might, who knows, with the kind of information flying all over the place nowadays, we're lucky if we can remember what happened a few minutes ago. That John Bolton, Mike Pompeo have been drumming the beat in order to start a war with Iran. So anything that happened, they're using that as an opportunity to begin that war. Now, yes, it makes perfect sense that it's in the Strait of Hormuz. By the way, this is one of the canals in that area which transport oil for different parts of the world, meaning if there is some problem in that area, the oil business will suffer tremendously, and countries will have a lot of problem. So it is a very strategic location for transportation of oil. Now, the Trump administration jumped up and down. It was Iran, and of course Iran denied that it did any such thing. And it so happened the sailors Japanese tanker sailors who had to evacuate actually said just something completely different from what the Trump administration drumbeat has been about. According to the administration, it was a mine that exploded, and they were trying to, according to, again, the Trump administration, they were trying to remove the mine. But the sailors say, no, there was no mine. It was flying object that hit the tankers. So much for Iran being responsible. You see how war started? Some individuals sitting in Washington that itching to get the country involved in the war concocted a story. Remember Iraq? Concocted a story about a country they don't like, because those warmongers in Washington itching to have a war, so they came up with something. If that doesn't tell you anything about the countries, and that's not pertinent to the Donald Trump administration, and we're not saying that because, well, it's the Trump administration. We're saying it because that's the state of affairs in the United States of America. The amount of money we spend in wars, most wars are unjustified and always costly. We spend our soldiers' lives in nonsense war, and most of them are scenarios perpetrated by our government in order to get the country involved in war. On another note, Sarah Huckabee Sanders finally realized that she ran out of lies to tell the American people and decides to leave. I would add my voice to the number of people who say good riddance. People are defending Sarah Huckabee Sanders. First, let me say Sarah Huckabee Sanders is not a pioneer. She is not the first one who served as spokesperson for the White House, and she's not press secretary, and she's not the first female either. Many before her had occupied that position, but she is the first one who chose to lie to the American people over and over and over and over, and even when caught, instead of making apologies and try to correct herself from doing so, she put on the lies and tried to explain it with other lies. Yes, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was a disgrace to the country. Notice I didn't say to the Trump administration, because Sarah Huckabee Sanders, as a civil servant, her job is to relate to the American people what really is going on. Now, for those who try to defend Sarah Huckabee Sanders and say that she had a tough job, she did have a tough job. A lot of people, many before her, had a tough job too. It's not like she's unique and that was the first time she was trying to do something that nobody else had done before. A lot of people had that position, and women as well. They didn't have to lie that much to the American people. In fact, they didn't have to lie to the American people. Most of them, sometimes when it's something that's not accurate, they try to correct the mistake later on, because the press secretary owes that to the American people. We paid Sarah Huckabee Sanders to tell us the truth. Just like her boss, Donald Trump, she never opened her mouth to say anything that you can believe is true. It's always a lie. It's mind-boggling that someone could have a job to inform the American people, but instead chose to lie and over, not lie that happened by accident. She concocted the lie before she stepped in that podium. She came with prepared document, all of which are lies. No, Sarah Huckabee Sanders doesn't deserve support from women just because she's a woman. Sarah Huckabee Sanders doesn't deserve any sympathy because her job is tough. Sarah Huckabee Sanders does not deserve any recognition. She wasn't the first one to have that position, but she was the first one to have lied to the American people as much as she has. So no, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is not to be recognized for anything except as someone who has spent her time in the White House lying to her. Now, if she wants a medal, let's crown her the Queen of Lies. Live from New York City at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Fourth French presents discussions, debates, commentaries on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education, science, and every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks, Republicans on Democrats, information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time. It is the right thing to do. It is the only way to sanity in a world of chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense. There is plenty to cry about. Yes, there is plenty to cry about. If you watch this program in the first segment, you may remember that I mentioned earlier that most individuals who go for public service, something important in mind. They have this fire in their belly that things are not well in Washington. Things are terrible, and they want to fix that. They want to change that dynamic. They will get rid of status quo. As such, they run for public office and they go to Washington. But unfortunately, in Washington, we have a bunch of veterans, a bunch of crooks, a bunch of liars, a bunch of people that for so long they rely exclusively on lobbyists, on people who finance their campaign, and as such they have no interest in doing anything for the people. The very elected those individuals in Washington, they're not getting anything, and here's the reason: because they've been there for a very long time. So, which means we have to understand as to at which point exactly those people decide the people don't matter. We, the people, do not matter. As I mentioned earlier, people for public service, they have very noble cause. They have a reason, not selfish, not personal. They have something that they see that's not working right in Washington. So they decide, we're not gonna stay. I'm not gonna stay at home. I'm not gonna say just keep talking and see nothing happen. I'm gonna do something about it. So they run for public office. As you probably been hearing in the news, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, has made news since the day that she won the primaries. Continue to make news because she still has that fire. She still wants to fight for people. And every time you watch her in the house, and you can still see that fire, that she wants to accomplish something, not just be there as a congresswoman, but be there to represent the people of her district. Now that's the way most people, not necessarily with the same enthusiasm as AOC, but nevertheless, that's the reason that most people get into public service. But the longer they stay in Washington, the less they become interested in doing anything for their constituent. And the reason is because they met in Washington, people like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, people like Jim Jordan, Mike Meadow, who do not care about their constituent, people who are not doing anything for their constituent, who now showing them the rope. You don't have to do anything for your constituent. All you have to do is give lip service, pretend that you're doing something, be outrageous, and that's all it takes, and you can keep your job forever and make sure you get love. And that's the way it has been for centuries now. In other words, we, the people, are screwed. A few weeks ago, Rick Scott, Republican senator from Florida, and Mike Braun, Republican senator from Indiana, they proposed to have term limits for legislators. Now, the reason you're not hearing about it is because I can almost assure you that Mitch McConnell probably already killed that. Because anything to advance the affair, Mitch McConnell against it. Now, people who are not paying attention think Mitch McConnell is doing things for the country. Mitch McConnell is doing things for Mitch McConnell. Just like you see Donald Trump, just like you see a lot of those other people. Because anything that guarantees that he can keep his job, that's what he does. So what's wrong with putting term limits on legislators? Mitch McConnell has been there for more than 3 decades. So you can see he doesn't like the idea of term limits. But Mitch McConnell, when we watch the tape, Mitch McConnell was not always that way. It's, as I mentioned, the more time in Washington, the less interested they become in doing anything for the constituent, to do anything for the country. It becomes about themselves. And the longer they spend there, the better they get at providing rationale to do what they do and to sell it to the constituent, who unfortunately, especially, and this is not a joke, especially Republican constituents are naive, gullible, and a lot of them are simply ignorant. So whatever their legislature tell them, they buy it and they vote that same individual back in office. Look at the 2018 midterm election. All the senators are there. In fact, they even pick up a seat. Yes, when I say Republican constituents are naive and gullible, now I get a lot of pushback, especially from individuals on the Quora forum who claim the fact that they say Democrats always think of Republicans as stupid. No one can claim being smart by acting like a fool and speaking like an idiot. No one has to be one stupid. Now, as far as we are concerned here at the Fourth Branch, as I mentioned, we address social, political issues. We take a look at legislation, things that impact the country, that impact a large group of people, and debate it with you so that you can get a sense as to whether those things that are being done are actually good for you. Yes, you can get the news everywhere. You would hardly get the analysis all the information, of this type of information, like legislation, policies, etc., in order for you to get an understanding that this is not good for you. No matter what your congressmen tell you, no matter what your senators tell you, they just lying to you because they need your vote. And as long as they continue to get those votes, doing things for you is not a priority. And I can give you example after example after example. In fact, I don't even have, we are working towards bringing you years of Republican making policies, passing legislation that are detrimental to their constituent in general, to the country in particular. It could be, but we went as far back as 100 years, a century, in order to prove that very point, that Republicans have been doing that over and over and over and over. It's almost as if they bet on the fact that their constituents are too naive to understand, and also bet on the fact that they become so good that they can talk their constituent into re-electing them in office. And guess what? They're not wrong, because their constituent, look at Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, they've been elected, re-elected. Mitch McConnell has been there for over 30 years. So they're not mistaken that they have a naive, gullible, and ignorant constituent who will continue to send them back in office. So the question really is, how did he get there, and what can be done about it? And after all, this is what we're about. Look at AOC. She's on fire. She wants to work for her constituent. Now, not everybody's fire gets squashed by Washington. Look at Elizabeth Warren. Quite a few days too, but she still has the same fire, the same enthusiasm, the same vigor to defend, to do things for the people. And when she talks, you can clearly see this is not just a politician telling you things. It is an individual who strongly believes that the people are supposed to be the one that benefits of whatever happened in Washington. Unfortunately, there are a few of those people in Washington. But ironically as well, those people come only from the Democrat side. Now, what Rick Scott and Mike Brown proposed, that would be a first. It is an important piece of legislation, and I really hope there are enough people who back that up. I'm hoping that Democrats completely stand behind that, because this is needed. Our country hasn't been moving forward because those individuals that have spent so much time in Washington, they do not care about their constituent. Translation, they do not care about the country. So what can be done? That's really the question, because telling you about that, you heard that here, you heard that probably everywhere you turn. You heard people talking, some bashing Republican as you might do it, especially if you're a Republican, but nobody offers a solution. So what's the solution? The solution is not difficult, but before we talk about the solution, I'm going to give you a couple of tangible examples, not things that happened 100 years, but things that happened during the Trump administration, to kind of give you a sense. When we say that Republican legislators are not working for their constituent, working on behalf of the constituent, are not even working on behalf of the country, we don't say that just because we have nothing else to say. There are 100 years of data of Republican making policy, passing legislation, and all of which are detrimental to their constituent. Now that part can be proven, and we will. It's not really a question. It's why? Why would someone go for public service, propose to represent people of a state, and now get Washington to start doing things that are completely detrimental to those constituents? That's the question that you ought to ask, and that the answer you ought to have, assuming that is of any interest to you. Right. United States, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as known. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in that where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. February of 2017, just 1 month after Donald Trump has been sworn in office as the 45th president of the United States, the legislative branch, completely under the control of the Republican Party, passed a piece of legislation bringing $1.5 trillion and call it a tax cut for the people. I talked about that here before during the time we were debating in the country. It's a topic we will bring back in order to explain what we have been talking about when we say that Republicans for 100 years have worked systematically, continuously, steadily, and do everything that detrimental to the constituent, and not because they made a mistake. That's something that the piece of legislation that I just mentioned that's passed in 2017. At that time, Republicans were in control of both Congress and the Senate, so it was very easy to pass whatever that they had. So they passed a legislation with $1.5 trillion tax cut, and they say it's a tax for the people. $1.3 trillion out of that went to large corporations and wealthy individuals. So they had only 0.2 that were to be distributed among everybody else. In other words, you may have seen on your paycheck $40 extra or $60 extra. Now I heard my fellow Republican going, yay, I don't care. I get at least $40 extra, I get $60 extra. And that's where ignorance jeopardizes our democracy. Because those who don't care, because they don't understand what they want. It's just an example, but it will drive the point home. And that's exactly what your Republican legislators want to happen. They want you not to understand what just happened so that you can have exactly the reaction that you have, referring to Republicans. And this way, it guarantees their job for much longer. I spell it out to you. If you're interested in the detail, in more detail, because we're not going to debate it here, I would refer you to the People Branch YouTube channel and search for entitlement. We did spend a few segments talking about entitlement in America. We debated in light of that very tax cut that were passed, and we left it there. But it's a topic that's worth revisiting because of the fact that entitlement is a topic that gonna come back because there is presidential election, and that always comes back. Now, the $1.5 trillion tax cut, of which you may have seen $40 or $60 on your paycheck, and you felt, I don't care how much they give to the large wealthy individual, I got $40, $60 extra I can use. Of course you did. And that's where the problem comes. Because number one, pay close attention, because I know your Republican legislators never explain. The news media do not have time to explain those things to you because news are happening so fast. All you get is whatever the news of the moment is. And since Donald Trump has been in the White House, happen in a second by second basis. So let me tell you exactly what you got. Yes, you saw on your pay stub, it's $40 extra. You're happy, of course you have to be happy. Any extra money can help. But pay close attention. First, the $40, the $60 extra you see is not a gift. It's a loan. And you heard correctly, because the $1.5 trillion were borrowed. And when you borrow money, you have to return it. Now first, if you're a logical person, you have to ask yourself, what the hell? Why would we go to borrow money to give to people who are already working? When you borrow money, you have to pay it back with interest. So that already did not make any sense. But we're going to move forward with the story so that you get a sense. When I say that your Republican legislators do not work on your behalf, you think that's a joke. That's not a joke. They work against your best interest. And they do that over and over and over. But what's even worse than what I just said is the fact that they're selling you lies in order to get your support. It's one thing that someone comes to you and say, for instance, Democrats have done that a lot. Now you may not like the fact that Democrats say we have to tax people in order to get this result. Hey, oh my God, I don't like the idea. At least they tell you that's what they're gonna do. But Republicans do not tell you that. They lie to you about what they're doing. And the $1.5 trillion tax cut, of which you got $40 or $60, wasn't a tax. it was money that was borrowed that has to be returned. First, the $40 to $60 you getting, you will have to return that money with interest. Did you? Of course not, you did not. But that's not even the worst of the problem. We, the people, they set aside 0.2 trillion to distribute among all the people. That's why you see $60, not a huge sum of money. Now, the bulk of the money, 1.2 trillion, I believe 1.2. So yes, there would be 0.3 to distribute among the people. So the 1.2 trillion to give corporation and wealthy individual. Usually that group is much smaller. That means they receive huge sum of money. In fact, when we discuss this topic, next time we will bring you example of Blue Cross and Blue Shield that receive at the time that you're receiving your $40, your $60, Blue Cross and Blue Shield and not only were not paying any money, but they were receiving $300 million back, courtesy of the $1.2 trillion. You know, large corporation, wealthy individual. Now let's get back to the story. So the money was borrowed, it has to be paid back. That's the way it works. You borrow money, you have to pay it back. But we, the people, we receive chop change, crumbs. But Republicans, who are gullible, they get on the drumbeat, praising the Republican administration and say, yes, we get $40, $60. That's what we want. That money is borrowed money that you have to pay back, but that's not the worst of it. While the Republicans were out there drumming the beat and get a tax cut, what they never said to you, that's why I say Republican, you may not like the Democrat legislation, but one thing you can rest assured, release, you get the gist of what the legislation is. You know that they're going to pass a legislation that's going to tax people in order to take that tax money and do something with it. And say, we're going to cut your taxes. When in fact, this is the biggest tax that they levy on the people. They put on the people. And here's how that happened. First, they borrow money that need to be borrowed, because the economy, when Donald Trump got into the Oval Office, the economy was doing great. Yes, everything can always be improved on, but the economy was doing great. So they don't need whatsoever to borrow money. And the only time it's justified for the government to borrow money to help out is when the economy is doing bad and people are unemployed. Then the government job is to help ease financial burden. There was no such problem. Now I'm telling you all that, you may not want to hear that, and that's probably the biggest problem we have also in the country, is because most Republicans only want to hear what they want to hear, and if you're trying to educate them, they ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy, and that's the problem. To advance the country, you have to learn what you don't know, and it's okay not to know. You didn't go to school for finance, you didn't major in finance, you didn't major in business. So yes, other people have that kind of knowledge. Me, I do have that kind of knowledge. I went to school for that. So I understand when those legislators in Washington are doing those things and lying to people, but the general public do not understand what those people are doing to them, so they go along with it, they support it, because Republicans are very good. Republican legislators, they're very good at hiding information, one, and lying and deceiving their constituent. So there's no way to explain it. And what even worse is the pundit, the Republican pundit, instead of explaining it to their audience, they do just go on the bandwagon and just promoting what the legislators are saying. So you don't have anybody educating you if you're a Republican. Everybody that's doing anything on the Republican side is to line up their pockets, to increase their pocketbooks. As far as your education, they couldn't care less. Over and over and over. You go to Fox, the reason they lie to their constituent is because they keep their audience, they get a lot of money from advertisers, so they have no incentive of educating you, because once you become educated, you walk away, because people who lie to you, you cannot keep letting someone lying to you and not do anything about it. So they continuously lie to you, and they go to videos that amplify those lies. So the only world you live in is a world of deception and lies. So when you find someone that's trying to explain to you that you're living in a la-la land, you just walk away, shrug off the person. What Republicans have been, that's the reason the country has been dragged down, is because we have a whole sector of the country, whole population, who is naive, is gullible, and some of them are downright ignorant, and they don't care about learning. And that is a major problem for the country. So back to our tax cut business. So you get $40-$60, you're happy because, yay, Donald Trump promised tax cut. I get $40-$60. No, you didn't get a tax cut. The money that you are getting is a loan, because the $1 trillion were borrowed. When you borrow money, you have to pay it back. That's really, you don't have to have gone to school for you to understand that. I'm certain of that. If you borrow money from a friend, you return it. If you borrow money from a bank, you have to return it. That's really simple. There is no debate there. So the country borrowed $1.5 trillion, and out of that, they put aside 0.3 to distribute among all the people. So I receive chop change. But it's still loan that you're getting, loan money that you are getting, which means it has to be paid back. The only question that remains, who is going to pay it back? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be your children? Or is it going to be your grandchildren? But it has to be paid back. But is the worst part of all that I just said. If you go to the bank, you borrow $100. When the time for you to pay back, you're going to pay back $100 plus whatever interest the bank charge. Let's say 10%. So you would pay a total of $110, because assuming you don't pay those $100 late, and then they would add another slap you with late fee on top of that. You got to love America, don't you? Now, just a quick note. During the Obama administration, financial institutions had to follow the rules not to charge people a high interest. You could owe $1 in a bank account, not a bank account, a credit card, which you may have forgotten to pay. That happened to me once. I had to call and curse the hell out of the person on the other line. I owe $1, and I'm sure that $1 was happened to have been whatever interest was calculated after I paid the credit card, but there was $1 that was added to it, and of course I thought that I paid the credit card. And then the next one I received a bill, and the bill was $30 some odd, and I'm like, and when I went and looked at the statement, I had $1 that I owed, but because I didn't pay it, say, Well, it's late charges. Talking about America capitalism, you see how your legislators are working for you. Those legislation that let the bank do those kind of things. Yes, they let the financial institution milk we the people, and courtesy of your legislators. Remember during the Obama, after the financial meltdown, that there was a Dodd-Frank Bible to prevent the financial institution from did. Remember how many people lost their 401k, etc., etc. Guess what? Republican trash all that because they say financial institution cannot be restrained. Of course, they sell it to you in terms of businesses, but for those of you who lost everything in your 401k, that should give you pause as to whose interests are your legislators for. Now, before I get lost in talking about something, let's go back to the tax cut. So, and we'll come back talking about those type of predicament that your Republican legislators has set the system in such a way that it doesn't benefit us, the people, only the financial institution. Now, 0.3 used to distribute among the people. That's why you get 40, you get $60. And the 1.2, which means 90% of that money used to distribute among large corporation and wealthy individual. Now, as far as you're concerned, if you want to think about it logically, you would have said, oh well, at the time that I need the $40, the $60, I got it, I don't mind paying it back. As I mentioned, we don't know who's going to pay for it. It may not be you, it may be your children, it may be your grandchildren, and the longer it takes, the more interest accrued on that money, on those $40 that you're getting. That's number one. But he's the part that's done number one. You remember the other 90% I just mentioned, the 1.2 trillion? Yes, that part that you didn't, you have nothing to do with it. Well, it's your Republican legislator didn't tell you that, but it so happened that you are also responsible for that. Yes, it's in the legislation, not something I'm just saying. According to, based on the legislation that the Republican passed, we the people get 0.3, let's just say 10%. The large corporation and wealthy individual get 90%. But the legislation clearly states that we the people are responsible for the whole 100%. Talking about your legislator working for you. Yes, think about it. Let me explain it to you in better terms. Go to the bank and you borrow $100. Let's assume that you live in a cul-de-sac. Your neighbor on your left, neighbor on your right. Let's just say all your neighbors. I'm going to make it 10 other people in the cul-de-sac. They all did the same thing. They go to the bank and borrow money. $100 here, $1,000 there, $10,000. And at the end of the day, when the time comes, you receive a statement from the bank, and the statement doesn't say you owe $100 plus interest, but the statement shows you owe $10,000. You say that got to be a mistake. I only borrow $100. So angrily, you call the bank, and the person on the phone tell you, sir, you according to what I'm looking at, your record shows you $10,000. So of course you unhappy, you bang the phone, hang up, and you drove to the bank angrily, want to talk to the manager because there is a mistake. You bring your receipt and show that you only borrow $100. The problem is when you get to the bank, you find out all the neighbors on your cul-de-sac, all the money that they borrowed, you are responsible for that money. So you borrow only $100, and you could have said, oh well, I wasn't gonna go to the bank to borrow money, but they're sending me the money, I'll take it and I'll pay it back. Except for one problem, you owe not $100, you owe the whole thing. And by you, I don't mean just you, we the people owe the whole $1.5 trillion. We didn't get $1.5 trillion. If we were to look at collectively, we the people only get 10% of the 1.5 trillion. But we responsible for the whole 1.5 trillion. Talking about your Republican legislators working for you. Yes, that's the legislation that they passed. When they were out there drumming the beat and tell you you're going to get a tax cut, that's what they were drumming the beat. So they lied to you because they never told you that was going to be the case, did they? No, they did not. They tell you, we're going to do that for you. So they borrow 101.5 trillion. They give us 10% of that, and the 90% go to large corporation and wealthy individual, but they stick us with the bill, the whole $1.5 trillion. You see that as people working on your behalf. But when they were passing the legislation, they were out there drumming the beat, it's a tax cut for you. You bought it, you heard it on Fox, you heard it everywhere you turn. As Republicans, because all the parties, all they were doing is just pushing the narrative. Oh, we're going to get a tax cut. We're going to get a tax cut. That's good for the country. That's all you're getting. Except that wasn't the case. So whether it's the pundit, whether it's your legislators, they're not working for you, for your interest. They work for their pocketbook, and as far as they're concerned, you their piggy bank. So as you can see, we're not talking about gibberish when we explain those things to you. Contrary to, contrast that to Democrats you don't like because you don't like their policies. The reason you don't like their policies is because when they come with a policy, they explain to you what the policy does. So of course you don't like the bad part. You prefer someone to lie to you what they're doing and pay the consequences later. How about that for a smart party? So your Republican legislators that you like to be lied to, so they lie to you. That's why you see Donald Trump, Sarah Huckabee, Mitch McConnell, everybody is lying to you because they know only way that they can keep their job. So lying to you works. They've been doing that and they are right. Because you don't care to know about the truth, you don't care to learn about the truth, you just go about your business and say, Democrats, I don't like them anyway. How could you? Because Democrats think. They look for information to understand what the policy is, what the proposal is, before they provide their support. That's why sometimes you'll hear in the news that Democrats are so divided. It's because Democrats don't just take what the legislature tell them and then just support it. They debate, they oppose. Republicans don't seem to have that ability to think for themselves. They let other people think for them. people who actually have a reason to lie to them, those are the people who are thinking for the Republican constituent. So the country is in serious trouble, because when you have a whole sector of the country, millions of people who cannot think for themselves, who do not think for themselves, who let those individuals who have a reason to lie to them, we have a problem. And as harsh as that may sound, that's your situation if you are a Republican. That's the predicament you're in if you are a, because your legislators, they're not doing anything for you. They use you, they lie to you, they deceive you, they inflate information, they misconstrue the information, they deceive you, they lie about the other side, because what they're very good at is deceiving and putting you back to back with your neighbors, with the other party, because they know how to keep the position that they have. And that creates chaos in the United States of America. I can tell you, my interaction with my fellow Republicans, sometimes I have to be shaking my head. It's like, any logic anywhere in that brain? We're not just talking about irrationality. It's like sometimes it's impossible, because as I mentioned, I don't expect everyone in the nation, Democrat or Republican, to understand legislation, and that's why that's what we do. We analyze what those people in Washington are saying they're doing, and we bring it to you bare and explain it to you in detail so that you can understand what they're telling you, whether it's true or not, and you can base on that. Because if you listen to your legislators, I guarantee you what they're telling you is a lie. They would not, because when the Republicans were drumming the beat about tax cuts, did they ever tell you that you will be responsible to pay for the 90% they give to the large corporation? Of course not. But that's what they were crafting. And that's what makes it even worse, because they were deceiving people while they were crafting the legislation. They were crafting the legislation. It's not something they had to work. While they were crafting the legislation, they were out there drumming the beat of a tax cut coming. While the legislation they were crafting clearly says that the people are going to get, the large corporations are going to get 90%, but the people are responsible for 100%. Did they ever tell you that? I don't recall anybody ever say any such thing. Do you? Was of some use to you. If not, well, you already know what to do. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion. Let us know how we can improve it, because it's not going anywhere. The first is to help perfect the union, and the only way possible to make that happen is to remove ignorance from the equation. In the meantime, if you have a topic you would like us to talk about, let us know. We will research it, we will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. I hope you have a fantastic afternoon and a great weekend. Unfortunately, we will not be able to be here tomorrow, but we will come back on Monday at 10 a.m. when we will continue the reading of the Mueller report. Have a wonderful weekend. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program for Common Sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time. The Fourth Branch podcast to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.